Masechet Nazir Daf He. We have two main topics today. The first one is Nazir Olam. We're going to find the source for it. And then we're going to see the next Mishnah about Stam Nazirut. Just someone says, I'm going to be a Nazir, how that is 30 days. And we're going to discuss that in detail. So we begin, Unzir Olam Hecha Ketiv. Where do we find anywhere in the Torah that it tells us that there is such a thing as a Nazir Olam, a Nazir forever? Netanya. Rabbi Omer, Avshalom Nazir Olam Haya, Shene'emar, Vahi Mikes 40 Shana, Veyomer Avshalom El HaMelech, Elechana Ve'ashalem Et Nidri, Asher Nadarti LaHashem Bechevron. Okay, even though we're looking for a pasuk, and usually we need a pasuk from the Torah, we're actually going to learn it from Navi that Avshalom was a Nazir Olam. This is not the peshat of the Navi. It never says about Avshalom that he actually was a Nazir. So this is more of a hint, and actually we're going to see that this is more of a Torah Sheba'al Peh concept, that there's such a thing as a Nazir Olam. Of course, one can become a Nazir for any amount of time, and even could say a very long time. But Nazir Olam had a special factor, which was that he is permitted to cut his hair as long as he then as long as he first brings the 3 korbanot that a Nazir would bring at the end of Nazirut. So this is, in fact, a special concept, not simply a Nazir forever, but a Nazir forever who is permitted to cut his hair along with bringing korbanot. So that's what we're looking for. And we're going to see an example from Avshalom. Now, we can look at the original Pesukim here to see what the context is. We're going to say that after 40 years, the Gemara will say 40 years counting from what? Avshalom told the king, David, his father, he wants to go and fulfill his neder that he made in Hebron, because he made a neder that when he comes back to Yerushalayim, so he will be thankful and he will show his thanks with, he will serve, make a korban there. And the king says, yes, go ahead. So here we see that he is making a korban. Now this korban is because of a neder, and it says why he made the neder, but the Gemara here is associating this sacrifice with Nazirut. Why? Well, there's another aspect of Avshalom, which is that he did not cut his hair so often. Here is the pasuk about that. So here it describes how beautiful he was from head to toe, and ubegalechot rosho v'haya mikes yamim layamim asher yigaleach ki chabed alav v'gilecho. So he had long hair. That was part of his why he was so handsome. And when he did cut his hair, it was only from time to time at the end of yamim layamim. Which seems to mean every year. We're going to be discussing what exactly this means, because the hair was too heavy for him, and when that hair that he cut, it was weighed out. It was equal to 200 shekel by the royal weight. So this is showing really how beautiful he was and how thick his hair was. Okay, and so this is, since he didn't cut his hair very often, and his hair was so long, and he made a neder at some point, so putting all these factors together, we're associating him with this type of Nazir Olam. Okay, so Megalech echad l'shnemasar chodesh nemar v'hi mikes yamim layamim. And we see from this pasuk that he cut his hair once every 12 months, since it says at the end of yamim layamim. And so we're going to prove in a minute that means a year. Ve'elif yamim mibate are choma mahatam shenem asar chodesh afkan shenem asar chodesh. And we're going to learn the word yamim appears here, and it also appears regarding the laws of redeeming a home that one sells in a walled city. We can look at that pasuk as well, where it says if someone sells a dwelling in a walled city, so geulatu, he can redeem it. Atom shenat mimkaro yamim tiyeh geulato. It says explicitly it'll be he can redeem it up to 1 year, and then it says the word yamim. So therefore yamim equals 1 year in the pasuk over here, and therefore if we look back here, it says miketz yamim. So the end of days, that also means 1 year, and that's how we know that Avshalom cut his hair every year. All right, that's all the first opinion, and we're going to come back to this explanation. Rabbi Nehorai omer megalech achat l'shoshim yom. Rabbi Nehorai disagrees and says, no, Avshalom cut his hair once every 30 days. Rabbi Yosef omer megalech me'erev Shabbat le'erev Shabbat, sheken masinu b'bnei melachim shemegalechim me'erev Shabbat le'erev Shabbat. Rabbi Yosef says, no, it's got to be every Friday, because that's what princes, they want to get ready for and look nice for every Friday. And they can afford to take haircuts as often as needed to look their best. And B'lichvod Shabbat, so surely he was a prince and he must have cut his hair every week. That also means that since he was a Nazir Olam, they would have to bring korbanot, right, every month, according to Binorai. Every week, according to the Biyoseh, but that's okay, he could afford it. Okay, my Tama did Rabbi. Now let's go further into the explanation of Rabbi to his source. Yalipin batei choma, Rabbi Huda amad, and yamim pechutin mishenayim. You said that we're going to learn that the word yamim means 1 year, from the redeeming of the house in a walled city. But Rabbi is the one that said Yamim is not less than 2 days. Yamim plural, Yom means a day, Yamim plural, so the least plural is 2, and so it means 2 days. If we look back at the pasuk, we can see how he understands it. Rabbi is saying that there's actually, he says, ad tom shanat mimkado, the maximum time is 1 year, but the minimum time, yamim, is 2 days. So there's a minimum and maximum. So actually, according to Rabbi, you can't use yamim for gezerah shavat to tell me that yamim means a year, because he thinks yamim is giving the minimum amount of days, that you cannot redeem it before 2 days have passed. So how is Rabbi going to use this gezerah shava? And the answer is, Hay gezerah shava mishum koved gamir ubishnei yamim leka koved. Because it says regarding Avshalom that he cut his hair every so often because of the heaviness of his hair. And in 2 days, his hair is not going to be too long to be so heavy. Therefore, it's clearly, when we're making the analogy from Avshalom to the Ir Choma, we're not making the analogy to the 2-day part of it. It's got to be not to the minimum, but rather must be to the maximum end of that spectrum. And therefore, we can connect Yamim and Avshalom to Yamim in redeeming of the city, and we're connecting it to the maximum part of that range, which is 1 year. Okay, ve'ema shete shanim. Wait a second. How do you know that Yamim regarding Avshalom means 1 year, and you're going to compare it to the walled city? Maybe Yamim means 2 years. Yom can mean a year, and so Yamim would mean 2 years. And we'll compare it to another pasuk. Tachtiv ve'mikesh shenatayim Yamim uparo cholem. So there it says at the end of Shenatayim clearly means 2 years, and Yamim is referring to those 2 years, and so therefore we can compare Yamim in Bereshit here to the word Yamim regarding Avshalom and say that he cut his hair every 2 years. And the answer is Danin Yamim she'eni mahen shanim, Yamim she'eni mahen shanim, ve'al yochiach zeh sheyesh imo shanim. No, we're going to compare the word Yamim that does not have that she'eni mahen shanim, that does not have the word shanim with it, meaning we're going to compare it to Ir Choma, where it doesn't say the word shanim. From another place that does not have shanim, which is Avshalom, right? Both of them have only the word yamim by itself, and we cannot bring a proof from a place that has yamim back to back with the word shenatayim here. So we want to find a place where it's all yamim only. That's the most similar. And therefore, we're not going to compare it to Bereshit and say 2 years. All right. Ve'ema sheloshim yom dichtiv ad chodesh yamim. Hold on. Why don't we say that Avshalom cut his hair every 30 days? And we see that the word yamim means a month. Here, when it's talking about the meat that Hashem is going to send down to Bnei Israel, so much until it comes out of their nose, even for 1 month. And so here we have chodesh and the word yamim. So yamim means month, 1 month. And so say Avshalom also cut his hair every month. And the answer is no. Danin yamim she'eni mahem chodashim, yamim she'eni mahem chodashim. We're going to compare the word yamim by itself, without the word chodashim that appears in Avshalom, with another place that it appears alone without the word chodashim, which is the walled city. And don't bring me this in Bimidbar, where it has chodesh and yamim together. We want to compare the phrases that are most alike. All right, maybe compare it to Yiftach's daughter, that they would lament for her it says Yamim Yamima. And we know that was, the continuation of the Pasuk says that was 4 days in a year. Assuming that those 4 days were spread out equally through the year, then that would mean once every 3 months. So why not learn from there that Avshalom cut his hair once every 3 months? And the answer is Danin Yamim mi Yamim and Danin Yamim mi Yamima. We want to compare a word that's exactly the same, Yamim and Yamim. And we're not going to compare it to this one here, where it says Yamim Yamima. That's a different phrase, and so is less connected than the one from Ir Choma. Okay. Umay nafka mina behatana deber Rabbi Ishmael v'shab hakohen uba hakohen zohi shiba zohi bi'ah. Now we're asking in general. Well, what's the difference if it says yamim or yamima? Does it really have to be the exact same word? We have this baraita from the school of Rabbi Ishmael that compares. This is regarding leprosy of a home, and in that paragraph it says v'shab hakohen. It also says uba hakohen, because the kohen has to come to the home multiple times to keep checking it. So this midrash is comparing the word Shava Kohen to the phrase Ubah Kohen, Zoi Shiba v'Zoi Bia, and saying it's the same thing. And just like when he comes the first time, he has to check it out, and if there's any mold, he removes those stones and all that. So to the second time when he returns, he also does the same procedure. Even though the pasuk doesn't say he does the same procedure, we learn this from a Gezerah Shava, even though it's not the same phrase. So why do you need that Yamim and Yamima are different things? They're close enough, and we should be able to make a Gezerah Shava anyway. And then we'll learn that it's once every 3 months. And we answer, no. Says, no, that we only use phrases that are not identical to make a Gezerah Shava when there is no other phrase that is exactly the same. So then we'll bring them, they're close enough, they're pretty close. But if there is a phrase here and a phrase there that are exactly the same, then we're going to pick the ones that are exactly the same and ignore the one that's not completely identical. All right, so that's a pretty good rule to remember the way Gezerah Shava works, and therefore we want to learn Yamim, and by Avshalom to Yamim, and the walled city. One more answer besides this one that's not exactly the same. How do we know in the first place that every 3 months was one of the times that they came and visited her? Dilmad ba'azimne bishata. Maybe it just means 4 times in a year, and maybe it wasn't all evenly spaced. Arba yarchin chadzimna, tiren yarchin bechadzimna. So they would wait 4 months between 2 appointments, and then only 2 months between the next 2 times that they would lament for her. It doesn't necessarily mean that they went every 3 months. It was more variable. Since it was more variable, certainly we couldn't learn from there the time period, because the time period always changed. And so that would be another reason why we don't learn from the example of Yiftach's daughter. Okay, so all that was the explanation for the first opinion of Rabbi, that Avshalom took a haircut every year. So we learned Yamim and Yamim. And now we're going to go to the next 2 opinions and see what their reasoning is. Rabbi Nehorai Omer, Megalech achat sheloshim yom, mai tama, gabe kohanim, mishum di'ika kobed, hachaname ika kobed. Rabbi Nehorai says Avshalom cut his hair once every 30 days, and he learns that from the laws of kohanim. Regular kohanim can have to be nicely clean-shaven, and therefore they have to take a haircut at least every 30 days. They cannot let their hair grow long. So why? Because of kobed. It should not be weighty. Their hair should not be long, and therefore the definition of too long is once it's 30 days. So also regarding Avshalom, since it says explicitly regarding Avshalom that he cut his hair every so often because it was too heavy, so and he trimmed it, therefore that equals 30 days. Okay. Rabbi Yosef Omer megalech me'erev Shabbat erev Shabbat. Ma'ika bene lish'ar achohi. So Rabbi Yosef says he cut his hair every week. Wait a second, if he cut his hair every week, and we just said, because we said princes cut their hair every week, well then what difference would there be between Avshalom and his brothers? Then they're all doing the same thing. So in what sense is he a Nazir? Of course, it would be one difference, at least, is that Avshalom has to bring korbanot every time that he cuts his hair. Okay, but the korbanot is a separate matter, right? What difference would there be in terms of the actual hair cutting? So we have a couple of answers. Yom Tov shechal liot be'emsa Shabbat achui megalachin hu la megalach. If you had a Yom Tov that fell out in the middle of a week, the brothers would get a trim in honor of Yom Tov. He would not, right? He did it only once a week. So that would be one practical difference because he was a Nazir. Or the time on Friday where the brothers would cut their hair on Friday morning, he would have to bring korbanot in the morning, and so he did not cut his hair until right before Shabbat. Or sooner before Shabbat. Okay, Hane arba'im shana mai abidatahu. Now that we mentioned this whole thing about Avshalom, and it says that after 40 years, he said, I have to go and fulfill my vow and bring these korbanot at Hebron. 40 years since what? It can't be 40 years since David, his father, became the king, because David's entire reign was only 40 years, and this happened sometime before the end of David's reign. Therefore, what is it? This is 40 years after the people asked of Shemuel Hanavi for a king. And another piece of chronology, that the people asked for a king 10 years into the career of Shemuel. All right, good. So we got to learn something about the story of Avshalom and his hair, and so he is the paradigm of this Nazir Olam, because we had a neder, and we see that he does cut his hair. He did cut his hair because it was too weighty upon him. Therefore, and it says Yamim, so Yamim is connected to 1 year, or the other opinions. So that's how we know the concept of a Nazir Olam. All right, Stam Nazirut Shiloshim Yom. Now back to just a regular Nazir, anyone who just says, I had any Nazir, and he doesn't specify a time period. It's never less than 30 days. So if you don't say anything, it's going to be 30 days. Minahan Emileh, what is the source that Stam Nazir is 30 days? We're going to see two opinions. Amar Rav Matana, Amar Kera, Kadosh Yihye B'Gematria Telatin Havum. Rav Matana says, since the pasuk says Kadosh Yihye, Nazir will be holy, and the word Yihye, the Gematria of that word is 30, right? 10, 10, 5 and 5. And there you go, learning something from Gematria. This is very unusual, because Gematria is something that we use for Agadash, just a fun association. But it's not one of the 13 major midot that you can learn a halacha from. And in fact, it's very rare that you learn a halacha from a gematria. Therefore, Rambam says, no, this is part of the Torah Sheba'al Peh, and this is just a hint that remez that we're reading back into the word Yihye. Okay, anyway, that is Rav Matana's source. Bar Pada Amar Keneged Nazir Nizrah Morim B'Torah Sheloshim Chaser Achat, and he's also doing some counting. If you look in Perek Vav in Bimidbar, where it talks the whole paragraph about a Nazir, it says the word Nazir or Nizrah, or also Neder, Nidra, in its different permutations. 30 minus 1. If you actually go and count them, it comes out to 30, in fact, which would be even better for Bar Pada. So it's curious why he doesn't actually just say it's 30. So the commentary on Masechet Nazir, who, by the way, is not Rashi, like Nedarim is not Rashi, it's someone. It could be a son-in-law of Rashi, or so we just call it the commentary on Nazir. So whoever it is explains that we don't count Nezer Elohav al Dosho, because that means it's a crown upon his head. So it's not referring to Nazir as a technical term about a Nazir, but rather refers to its more general meaning as a crown. So we don't count that one. That's why it's not 30, rather 29. Talmud Yerushalmi says, no, it is 30, but you need one to tell you that it's about Nazir. You need just one for the context. So they're not, the rest, other 29 are extra. So only 29 are extra. That's why it's 30 minus 1. Okay, so either way, but Pada says, I count them up, and there's 29 times it says Nazir or Neder, and that's why it's the minimum is 30 days. Now, obviously, there's a problem because it's 30 days, he only has 29. So we're going to have to solve that as well. All right, so now we're going to challenge both of these opinions. The fact that the Gemara is challenging so much sounds like the Gemara is taking it as if it's an actual derivation. Okay, let's see. V'rab matana name yalif nelaf min nazir nizro matana. Why are you learning from a gematria? Why not learn from the 29 times that it says this word? Amala chahu lidrasha miyayin v'shechar yazir lesor yayin misvaki. And Reshut says, no, I need those words for other derashot. We already saw this one. It says miyayin v'shechar yazir. This word yazir comes to teach us that a nazir is prohibited to have wine, not only in a voluntary situation, but also wine that he would have to drink for a mitzvah. So I need that yazir to teach me that halakha. It's not extra. Here's another one. Ki aflilin do neder nazir lahazir. Melamed she'nezirut chala al nezirut. Since there says has a double language here, nazir lehazir, that teaches me that if I say, I am a nazir, and then a minute later I say, I am going to be a nazir, then I have to fulfill two naziruts back to back. I can't serve them simultaneously, but rather I'll do one set of 30 days and immediately begin again another set of 30 days. How do you know that nazir takes effect upon another nazirut and I serve them consecutively? I learned that from these words. So I need these words to teach me other halachot. They're not extra. That's why I learned from a gematria. Okay. But Pada says, I also use those words to learn those derashot. I agree with those halachot. I agree with those derivations. But there's got to be at least one of the 29 words that is extra. That's all I need is one. Since I have one that is extra, that is extra. So all the rest of them I can use for their number. So even though I'm using the rest of them for other derashot, one of them says, hey, I'm the word Nazir to teach you how long a stam Nazirut is. And using me, you can count all the other words that are in this paragraph. And so those other words can be used for counting as long as I have one that's extra for derivation. All right, good. So we solved that one. Tenan, Sitam Nezirut Sheloshim Yom. Okay, now we're going to ask from this Mishnah. We're going to be asking from a few of the clauses in the Mishnah. So let's look at the Mishnah first in itself. The Mishnah in the beginning of chapter 3 of Masechet Nazir, Misha Amar Hareni Nazir Megalech Yom Sheloshim Ve'achad. If someone has a Stam Nezirut, then he should shave on the 31st day. In other words, fulfill a full 30 days of being a Nazir, and only then bring the sacrifices and shave on the 31st. But b'di avad, if he did shave on the 30th day, then yatsa. That's okay. So you see, there is something about doing 29 days and then only the 30th. So this is interesting. Hareni nazir sheloshim yom im gilach liyom sheloshim lo yasa. However, if he didn't say stam, just hareni nazir, he actually specified I'm going to be nazir for 30 days. Then he has to fulfill a full 30 days and only afterwards shave. And if he shaved on the 30th day, not good enough. Okay, so based on this, let's ask a question. Since it says a standard amount specified Nazirut is 30 days, this makes sense for Rab Matana, who said Gematria is 30 days. Good, and that's why it's 30 days. But for Rab Pada, he said this only says it 29 times, so that's only 29 days. So this is a problem. It should be 30 days. You only say 29. Amalach bad pada aididika yom telatin demegalech bikorbanot mishum hachi tena sheloshim. Rabada says, no, I'm going to count the 30th day on which he is also shaving and bringing korbanot. That is the 30th day that the Mishnah is talking about. So I learned that it says 29 times the word Nazir. That's 29 days of full Nazirut. And that Mishnah is talking about the 30th day upon which one brings the korban. So I can reconcile. Okay. Tenan. Mishamar hareni nazir megalech yom sheloshim ve'achad. Now the next clause in the Mishnah said that if someone says hareni nazir, so he shaves on the 31st day. All right. That was the phrase right here. Megalech nazir megalech yom sheloshim ve'achad. So what are you going to do with that? It has to be on the 31st day, not on the 30th day. This makes sense for the Matana who said that we're talking about Gematria. Gematria is be a Nazir for 30 days, and then the 31st day, he would bring his Korban. That's perfectly fine. But for Bar Kapara, this is a problem because you only said 29 days, and now you just told me that, the 30th day is the one that he can bring the Korban on. But here, this Mishnah says, no, he's a Nazir for 30 days. He brings the Korban on 31. How are you going to explain? How are you going to explain this? Bar Pada. Look at the very next phrase in the Mishnah. B'di'avad. If he did shave on the 30th day, he fulfilled his obligation. So you see, I'm right. 29 days, full Nazirut, and on the 30th day. Ela sefa mesayat le. So you're right. The sefa, the b'diavad clause, does support bar pada. Resha nasa keomer shelemin. The resha, when it says lechatechila, it's best to fulfill a full 30 days and bring the korban on the 31st day. That's because when someone says stam nazirut, we treat it as if he said a full 30 days. Well, if someone actually does say a full 30 days, certainly they have to do a full 30 days and only bring it afterwards. So when someone says stam nazirut, we want to kind of round it off, and treat it as if. That's why lecha techila, we recommend that the person will fulfill a full 30 days and only bring it on the 31st. However, technically, since he didn't say full shilemin, therefore, b'diavad, if he fulfills only 29 days and brings it on the 30th, that's okay. And so Bar Pada can explain it that way. Ramatana kashya sefa. Now the problem is for Ramatana. How is he going to explain the sefa that you can bring the animals on 30th day b'di'avad? And the answer is kasavar miksat hayom kekulo. He'll invoke the principle that part of a day is like an entire day. And so since he fulfilled his nizirut for 29 days and the 30th day in the morning, so that's his gematria of 30 days. And even if it was only for a few minutes in the morning that he was nazir before he shaved, that's okay. A part of a day is like an entire day. That's what we do when someone is avel. So the 7th day, they just sit for a few minutes, and then we invoke this principle. Part of the day is like the whole day, and then they can get up on the 7th day itself. All right, Ketenan, Hareni Nazir Sheloshim Yom. Now the next clause in the Mishnah says, if a person says, I am a Nazir for 30 days, then, right, Nazir Shem Im Gilachim Sheloshim Lo Yasa, it's no good if he does it on the 30th day. Im Gilachim Sheloshim Lo Yasa. So this is going to be a question on Mara Matana. You just said that part of the day is like the whole day. If so, and someone says, I'm going to be Sheloshim Yom, why is it no good if he shaves on the 30th day? The beginning of the 30th day, he was Nazir, so that should be like a whole day. And the answer is Be'omer Shilamin. The Mishnah must be must be talking about a case where he said, I'm going to be Nazir Shilshim Yom Shilamin, a complete 7 days, a complete 30 days, and that's why we cannot use Miksat Yom Kikolo if he in fact said Shilamin. Okay, we're going to ask more questions on their opinions from the very next Mishnah in the 3rd Perek, but that's going to go into the next stuff, so we'll stop here. Baruch Adonai Leolam, Amen ve'amen.